If you think of your job being the same from day to day, from year to year, from decade to decade, you're going to be left in the dust. And the people that are able to successfully shift are the people that understand and agree that we constantly have to be learning new skills and growing. If we're always learning new skills, we're never going to be left out because we're absorbing new information. We're figuring out, how can I do this in a different and better way? That was still important 50 years ago, but it's much more pressing now that the pace of the change has accelerated. So any advice I could give people would be keep learning, keep growing, take a new certification, take a new class, go to a webinar, hear how people are doing things differently in your field. Just recognize you're never done learning.
Laura, it's really great to have you. I'm really excited for us to dive into this topic of career development, which honestly, like nowadays, more than ever, feels like a really important topic that people are thinking about with so much disruption going on. So thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Vince. I'm looking forward to it.
I like to dive right in. So just reflecting on your, work, you've led career development across many different organizational changes. I'm curious if there are any like top 3 principles that you've seen that help people turn fear and uncertainty into confidence.
One of the biggest things that people forget when they're dealing with change, or when leaders are dealing with change, is that you're not just dealing with organizational level changes, you're dealing with changes that have to happen like inside people. When we have massive changes that happen, when we have organizational shifts, when we have new work, when we've got, uncertainty that is happening, we have to know how it's impacting our associates, our employees inside of themselves. So we have to let them deal with those things emotionally first before we can kind of impact organizational level shift. I think for leaders thinking about like how to help people through those times, the first time is you have to help them understand, what are they really afraid of? When we're going through changes, we're always afraid of something. And that's because like change triggers fear. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of something different. So we have to help our employees figure out, first of all, what are you afraid of? And then second of all, what's your plan for dealing with that uncertainty? When I have employees going through tough changes, I always try to help them figure out, okay, what's the worst that could happen? What are you afraid of? And then what can you do to alleviate those shifts? So if you're afraid of losing your job, I would say the first thing to do is figure out, what am I good at? What are my top skills? And then prepare for that potential future where maybe you are laid off. If you can put together a resume, get in touch with people that they're in good positions in other companies, talk to your network and say, hey, I might have an organizational shift. Do you know anybody that's looking for somebody with my skill set? Get in touch with those people that can help you. And then the third thing is really, in times of change and org restructuring, it's always better to start not from a place of threat, but to try to come at it from a sense of curiosity. Maybe you'll learn it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. Maybe you'll figure out why we're doing this thing. Maybe you'll figure out, hey, this is actually going to benefit us somehow. It's not all, thunderstorms. There could be a silver lining to those rain clouds. So, first of all, figure out what you're afraid of. Second of all, make a plan, because you don't want your brain ruminating and in that problematizing space. You want it to move to solution finding. And then third, start from a place of curiosity so you can learn some stuff. Maybe you'll be surprised at what you find.
That's very helpful. And like the idea of change, it doesn't have to be like losing a job, right? But even like just changing your role, I think triggers this idea of you've built your identity around something. And if that like identity pillar goes away or has to be reconstructed, people are like, well, who am I now? Like, what am I defined by? One of the things I feel like people often jump into is just think from a very tangible like role perspective, this role versus that role. When you think about people who are very good at navigating through change, like do they conceptualize career in any different way, or do they change their objective function in any way? I'm curious if you've seen the kinds of mindset shifts that actually help people be more resilient and find something that really works for them.
I mean, the people that are really good at navigating those shifts are typically people who think about, what value do I have that I can contribute to other people? If you think about an organizational restructure, the people that are going to weather that storm are the people that can kind of step back and say, hey, this isn't personal, this is business, and here's the value that I can deliver. Here are the skill sets that I'm awesome at. Here are the things that I'm not awesome at. They're the people that are likely to find the silver lining. Let's say we're going through a layoff. layoff. The person who's going to handle that layoff better is the person who is already well prepared and knows I can apply my skill set in other situations, not just this one job. So they're the person that's already out there looking for what's my potential next step? What else could I do with my skill set? Maybe they're already researching. Maybe they're the person who's not freaked out at the thought of losing the job, but they're like, hey, while this is happening, I'm going to take the opportunity to look and see what else would I be good at. If you're thinking
Yeah.
about like what tangible stuff to give people during that time, I really like to give people the Holland assessment. It's like a career profiler that's really good at figuring out what other jobs would you be good at besides the one you're in now. So it's kind of like categorizing what types of activities you like to do, what types of tasks are your favorites, which ones do you hate, which ones do you actually really like. And so here's maybe your top job match, which for many people is often the job they're already doing. But hey, along with that top job match, there's 3 other ones that you should also really consider with your particular skill stack. I always like to give people that because then it gives them an opportunity to say, if this shift happens, I'm not just pigeonholed into this one job. Here are 3 other things that I could do that I'd be really, really great at. And I love seeing people kind of branch out and figure that out.
And typically, like, how different are these job families? Like, how often do you see them, like, actually going from something that they never thought about versus how often is it very adjacent roles and people actually sort of can already imagine themselves into it? I'm just curious what you're seeing actually play out in the market.
Sometimes it's wildly different. When I take the Holland assessment, depending on what day it is and how discouraged I'm feeling, it's going to have some tangential things. Like for me in learning and development leadership, it's going to have tangential things. Maybe you could be a school administrator, or maybe you could be a learning consultant, like in your own company. But then it also sometimes has things like maybe think about you could be a social worker if you went back and did a little more school, or maybe you could learn career coaching, which I love helping people with career coaching. The skill set is going to be kind of similar, but the application might be different. So for somebody who's an organization effectiveness consultant, maybe they could also be a business intelligence lead. Maybe they could also be like a talent intelligence person. The skill sets are maybe using the same skills, but stacked up in a different way, maybe in a different order or in a different context. Maybe it's just moving from like the corporate world to like private. That could be the whole shift, but it's still things that are like related.
I know you offer actual formal programs in career development. Can you explain a little bit what your program entails so people can get a concept of, well, what does this look like in a place like Humana? And also, what are some of the shifts that you see happen in participants when they go through the program?
Yeah, so we have a couple different kinds of programs at Humana. We have our enterprise level leadership development program, which is the core skill stack that any leader at Humana could benefit from. And that's things like, maybe communication skills. Maybe that's things like giving feedback to your associates. That's over in our enterprise learning team. But then at my level, I lead learning for both our pharmacy division and our clinic division. And those are very separate animals. They're 2 branches of the company that are in the care business, but they're very different in how they run. So leadership development or career development that I would run for each one is going to be different. So I try to look at what are the needs of the business and what are the particular skills that their leaders need. So for our sales team in the pharmacy last year, I had my team build a sales leader cohort. And that was 5 different skills that are based on what their team needed. So it's things like accountability, how to do feedback for your team, how to do coaching, outcomes-based kind of stuff, because sales teams are very growth-oriented. But it's still leadership skills. So people on those teams would go through, and for this particular program, we had to meet, I think, 6 different times as a cohort, once every 3 or 4 weeks. They had homework assignments that they would do, learning the skill, and then we would bring them into the program with everyone, and they would meet and discuss the application of that skill. So then they would go practice with their teams afterward. So it wasn't like a go do e-learning and then that's it. I hate those programs. It was very, here are things that you can learn as a leader, and now go do them with your team. Application's probably the weakest point of many talent development programs, is like, how are you actually putting this into practice with your teams? Then that's for the pharmacy side. For the PCO side, primary care organization, that's our clinic division. We're still identifying what that looks like. I just moved over there in September, so I'll let you know about that one. But really, every career development program that I build is based on what outcomes is the business trying to affect and how can our program plug in. So it's not just generic skills. It's what are the skills that are going to enable you to have more success on the metrics that matter to you in the business.
You have to deliver some of these things really at scale, right? You're at a large organization. The population you're trying to affect isn't like 20 people or 50 people like small cohort. They are much bigger. So how do you think about, ensuring that you achieve both high impact and efficacy, but also at scale? How do you think through that sort of trade-off?
That's tricky as programs get bigger, but I would say the programs that work the best for us are the programs where, even at scale, people are still accountable to other people. So if it's a program where we're developing other leaders, you as a leader who's going through it still have an accountability partner. I'm not going to be on that phone call. I'm not going to be the person who's making sure you have that conversation with your accountability partner. Your accountability partner is going to be the one that holds you to it. So the programs that we build that work the best are programs that are cohort-based, and the programs where people actually are responsible to other people for their performance. So like if you cancel a meeting with your accountability partner to practice the skill that we asked you to practice, it's your responsibility to reschedule it. And it's your accountability partner's job to let us know if that meeting wasn't rescheduled. So you belong to each other. That's sort of the model that helps.
That resonates with me. I think one of the strongest drivers of people actually persisting through something that is effortful, valuable to them, but effortful in the short term is social accountability. I feel like that is a really strong driver of motivation and engagement. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, are there any other principles beyond the social accountability that really stands out to you as top design principles that drive actual business results that you're targeting?
So besides cohort-based learning and accountability to other people, which I would say are probably number 1 and number 2, the third one is probably timed reinforcement. So a program is not going to be impactful long after if it's just run once and then that's it and then it's done. And it's like the flavor of the month and we're like, bye. I can even tell you how many programs that I have seen delivered that it was like, hey, you're going to go to this awesome training and it's going to change how you do things. And then there's no follow-up afterward. They're like, hey, follow up with so-and-so after, and then there's nothing.
Yeah, nothing happens. Yeah, there's no real accountability for reinforcement there.
No, It doesn't work. And so the best programs that are the most successful are those that have refresher training or timed reinforcement, at least for the first year. I know that we have such high turnover that sometimes it's not always possible to have an ongoing reinforcement, but we can follow people for the first year and get them comfortable in their role and give them that, refresher at the 30, 60, 90, 120 day mark, just so it kind of stays in their brain. The biggest drop off that we see is between the first day that people leave class and day 30, because most of it's going to leave their brain then. If it's stuck for 30 days, it's probably going to stick. So we need to actually have timed reinforcement that helps people recall. These are the biggest concepts.
Before the 30, yeah, for sure.
And if we do that, then they're going to probably keep it. I have this program that I went through, a culture workshop. I would say the follow-up wasn't the best, but there is one principle that has always stuck with me. This is from a Sendlini workshop. I have this on my desk. The principle was, wherever you are, be there right now. I still have the plaque. But it stuck with me because it was something that I applied literally every day in my job. Being present with my employees, being present with my team members, my peers, being present with my leader. Because I used it every day, I have not forgotten it in many, many years. And those are the best kinds of reinforcement, the ones that we're going to use every day. So I'd say anything that I push people to build has those regular refreshers at many, many intervals that they can just say, hey, remember, here's a little bit about what we learned. Because if we don't, people are never going to recall it. And it's just going to be a flavor of the month. And then the funding's going to evaporate. And then it's going to be another one of those, oh, what was that thing that we did last year? Oh, doesn't matter.
What have you seen most effective to demonstrate real and sticky skill development to leaders? How do you show that the programs that you're delivering are actually working and in persisting in driving change?
What we are measuring needs to be what the business wants to measure. So if we're going to track whether the program was effective, we need to track, has it led to a reduction in turnover, which is a, quantifiable measure. Turnover has a real and very high cost, especially at larger organizations, that have our own talent acquisition teams. Have there been engagement improvements, which is really important because higher engaged employees perform better. And then the third one is, what kinds of performance improvements have we seen as a result of that increased engagement? So maybe you can take an associate group or a leader group, and you can say, here was their performance in X thing before the training for the year before. Now let's look at them after the training. How are they performing in that area after that? Maybe if it's a leader and if it's a leadership development thing, maybe they have 360 feedback. How was their 360 feedback the 3 years before training? How was it the year after the training? How was it the second year after training? Track the numbers that actually matter to the business. If you're doing operational training, it's easier because it's like, hey, what was their, phone satisfaction,
Right. So
net
more
promoter
metrics
score?
that are like very tied. Yeah.
Yeah, but leadership development and career development, those do have an ROI. And you just have to get down to what is that ROI. So voluntary turnover reduction, which, attrition is very high in a lot of frontline leader roles, engagement improvements, efficiency improvements. And then I would also say a fourth one for leadership development programs is, how many promotions has that person had? Is there an increase in how many promotions that person gets after training? So if they've had one promotion and they have more promotions after that, or what is the rate of promotions among the pool of leaders that you've trained versus the general leader population? Those are the numbers that you can show the business to say, hey, this training is working.
Interesting. And which ones, out of the different ones you share, have any ones been the killer ones that people really are drawn to? Is it very different by business? I'm curious what your experience is.
I mean, each business is going to find one or more of them most significant for them, but I would say probably performance improvements. Anything that helps, like, we're going to be more efficient. Your team's going to get more done. A team that's more productive is a team that generally is more engaged. So probably performance.
Performance is probably the one that's like hardest to prove, if you will, because it's so soft. Do you have any example of a performance improvement metric that has like worked really well in your domain?
Yeah. So like if it's a process team, let's say it's a process improvement team, and their leader goes through training on how to give feedback better or how to do better coaching. That team, that performance improvement team, should have better results for the next year and how much money they saved the organization. Because if their leader is giving them better feedback on how to improve as a team member, that should bring up the whole team. If you have things like a data analysis team, maybe it's they got more reports done. Maybe they got more dashboards done. If it's a learning and development team and their leader went through project management training even, and they got more done and they made fewer mistakes and they got things done faster. That's the kind of thing you want to track.
If you think about just beyond like tracking and making sure the leaders continue to fund it, a lot of organizations, I think, have a question to just even justify, like, should we even prioritize this? Like, should we get started with career development or leadership development? So what do you see as a way in which you can get leaders to really care and realize this is important?
I will say this from a place of not condemnation. I say this from a place of, this is how humans are. We care the most about ourselves, and we care the most about things that impact us. As a leader, let's say I'm a potential stakeholder, the thing I most want to know is what's in it for me. And I am not going to approve something that I don't feel has a real tangible value to me and either my career or my organization. So as a person trying to propose a career development program, before I even suggest the program, I need to figure out the what's in it for me, for that particular stakeholder. What's it going to take for them to give the thumbs up? So I need to focus on the wins for this organization. So first of all, what are the business metrics that are going to be improved? What are the HR metrics that are going to be improved? What are the efficiency gains? What are the quality errors that are going to be reduced? And I need to position my presentation to that leader first and foremost with, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm proposing this, and here's what you're going to get out of it. Before I go into the details, like, I need to hook them immediately with the wins. Here's what you, leader in particular, will get.
Yeah, and one of the challenges that I've seen in a lot of organizations is that the business is not collecting a lot of this data very well. So it's actually very hard, even if it's conceptually a good idea, they don't have the system set up to be able to measure and track. How do you fight against that sort of lacking status quo around measurement? Or have you faced that issue?
I've faced that so many times. So what I do is I have my teams that are working on this go to the sources of the data. There's always somebody in HR who's going to be tracking turnover. There's always somebody in HR who's going to be tracking engagement scores. There's always going to be somebody in the business who's tracking quality or tracking, process adherence. All those things, all those pieces of information are just out on their own, out into the wild. And so what I've had my teams do is get from those teams that are the data holders, where is the source of the data? Instead of pull us a report, we talk to them and say, hey, HR people, can we get a feed from your data pool and put it into our dashboard? We just take the data source, we ask them for that one time and pull it into a data lake, which is just our pool of all the stuff we want to track. And instead of having to ask them again and again and again for reports, I have
They're just coming in.
They're just coming in all the time.
Yeah.
And if something breaks, then we have to talk to them about it. But if not, we've just asked them one time, hey, can we have access to the attrition? And they give us that information. And so we have the ability then, after we have that information in our data lake, to put it in a dashboard or display it however we want to display it. But convincing somebody one time to do something for you is much easier than saying on a continual basis, give me this information every week. It's eventually going to fail. So really the reason is automation.
Yeah. And also just like the idea of investing in the data infrastructure. That's really key. And I feel like that's often an afterthought. But if you're able to partner with like the data organization or analytics organization in your company to really set that up, definitely like a lot better done in advance than last minute trying to do it. And then you realize, oh, like this data doesn't flow, or this is actually missing this field, or like we don't actually have this. And it's sort of like frustrating for everyone.
And I was just going to add, I have people on my team that are great at data visualization. So I just had those people start building this infrastructure for us. And it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's a real investment. Yeah, but I think L&D teams having like a data visualization like capabilities seems really key. Then you're also seen as a serious partner, right? You're seen as a serious partner who can like show the results to your business stakeholders versus like you're just showing like smile sheets always. That's through the survey that you measure. And then if you have a like great smile sheet, like it sort of answers the question, okay, it's not bombing. The sessions are not bombing, but it doesn't actually answer any of the questions that the leaders actually care about. It like kind of it's the absolute bare minimum they expect to be happening. But then like, you got to justify the value.
It's the business's money that we're spending on our team, right? So they need to know what they're getting out of it. Is it actually resulting in better metrics for them? Is it helping their objectives and key results in any way, or helping us enable our strategic initiatives? If it's not, then the next time a layoff happens, our team is at risk just as much as, or maybe more than other teams, if we don't have that data that says, here's how we're impacting your metrics. So I would say for any team that's doing learning and development, operational training, career development, leadership skill building, you need to have a vehicle to say, here's how our work matters to the organization. If we have that, we have a shot at saying we need more resources, or hey, we're not just a cost center, we're a really important investment for the organization to make. I would say that is probably at least as important as having learning designers and learning facilitators who are going to build and deliver content. You need somebody to show the impact of your work.
For sure. Switching gears a little bit, business landscape and the world of work seems to be changing a lot. There's a lot of skills that were very relevant before that are very quickly becoming irrelevant. There are other skills that didn't matter at all now that are becoming very relevant. I'm curious, has the current state of the world, including, the disruption through AI, changed the kind of skills you're focused on in your career development programs?
Yeah. A lot.
Well, what's going up as like top priority nowadays?
I would say probably the most important things that we're teaching people right now are on agility and handling change, because the rate at which things are changing is so fast and it's never going to slow down. People keep thinking, oh, I'll just get through this change and then it'll slow down. I'll get through this change and then it'll slow down. It is never going to slow down. The pace at which the business is moving is always going to be at least this fast, we can safely assume. And we need to.
This is as slow as it will be, right?
Sam Altman was saying last year, this is the worst version of ChatGPT you are ever going to have in your lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And the thought is, yes, things are going to continue and we're not going to ever slow down. So, I have to teach people how to have agility, because for a data analyst, instead of them spending 6 hours analyzing a data set, maybe now they can spend 30 seconds collating all the results to analyze that data set and 2 hours planning for interventions based on that data and what the data tells us. So it's not that the job is a fundamentally different job, it's that we approach it differently. So we need to have an agile mindset so that we can actually pivot to figure out where my particular job is going. It's not like all these jobs are just going to suddenly all disappear like milkmen or lamplighters. A lot of the jobs like data analysts just have to pivot. And so the skill set is understanding data, but you don't have to have as much manual, I need to know how to build a pivot table anymore. Maybe you can have ChatGPT do that, and then you can say, okay, what are the insights that we can gain from that information?
Kind of the final question for you. If you look at people that are really thriving in this environment, what are traits or mindsets that they seem to have that allow them to really seize the moment and thrive versus really struggle?
I think the top differentiator is those people who can adapt to the new environment, have growth mindsets instead of fixed mindsets. If you think of your job being the same from day to day, from year to year, from decade to decade, you're going to be left in the dust. And the people that are able to successfully shift are the people that understand and agree that we constantly have to be learning new skills and growing. If we're always learning new skills, we're never going to be left out because we're absorbing new information. We're figuring out, how can I do this in a different and better way? I think that was still important 50 years ago, but it's much more pressing now that the pace of the change has accelerated. So any advice I could give people would be keep learning, keep growing, take a new certification, take a new class, go to a webinar, hear how people are doing things differently in your field. Just recognize you're never done learning. I'm still taking certifications and I am so tired and I am worn out, but I'm only in my 40s. I probably have a few more decades of learning left to do. Good news.
I fully agree with that, and I definitely see growth mindset as also a topic that a lot of clients that work with Sparkwise think about as well. So that really resonates. Thank you so much, Laura, for sharing today how you think about driving career and leadership development in today's time, and hopefully start off more conversations like this.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Vince. It was great.
Thank you.